Hey writers, you're listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business. We're your hosts. I'm Rachel, promotion specialist at Kobo Writing Life.
And I'm Laura, Kobo Writing Life's author engagement manager. Today we spoke to Elena Armas. Elena is a Spanish writer, a self-confessed hopeless romantic, and a proud book hoarder. Now she's also the best-selling author of The Spanish Love Deception, The American Roommate Experiment, and the upcoming release, The Long Game.
Our conversation with Elena was so much fun. Laura and I had a blast. We talked to Elena about her journey from chemical engineer to book blogger to bookstagrammer to best-selling author. We talked a lot about her upcoming release, The Long Game, and where she drew inspiration for that story. And we just had a really great time talking to her about her publishing journey. It was so much fun, and we really think you're going to enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Today we have best-selling author Elena Armas with us. Elena, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Hi, hello. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to chat with you guys. Very excited also to talk about The Long Game. Yeah, so I'm Elena Armas. I mean, you already said it, so that was not needed.
Your accent on your name is much better.
Yeah, we need you to say it just so we can get the full experience. Yeah.
Right. So I'm originally from Spain. I'm Spanish. I'm now a writer. It wasn't that way 3 years ago, I think, 3 or 2, maybe even 2. And yeah, I write romance books. I love romance in general. Anything romance I love, and books specifically. And now I get to write them. So that's awesome.
3 years. That is such a whirlwind, considering that, correct me if I'm wrong, but your third book just came out, or is coming out in like 5 days. We're recording this in August. And so you said you love books, and you started your journey in publishing as a bookstagrammer. And I'm so curious, what kind of made you make the jump into like, I'm going to write a book?
Craziness, basically. I was very cocky when I decided that. I don't know what the heck I was thinking, to be honest. But yeah, I was a bookstagrammer for a long time. And before that, I actually had like my WordPress blog. And I mean, I was like a full-on book blogger in my free time. It was my hobby. So as a full-time job, I used to be an engineer. Now well, technically, I guess I'm still an engineer, but that writes romance books because that's my full-time job now. But yeah, I was doing the blogging gig for quite a long time. And so I was around books a lot. All my free time was spent reading or reviewing or posting about the books I read and reviewed. And the reason why I decided to do the jump was no reason whatsoever. I just thought it would be fun to give it a go. Writing or being an author had never been like my dream. I was already very happy with being a blogger, with being able to spend so much time around books, and with having publishers send books to my house for review, like all these advanced copies and review copies. I was already so thrilled that I got to do that. So when I had the idea for my debut, The Spanish Love Deception, I just decided to write it because I don't know what got into me. I somehow thought that I could do it, and I decided to do it. And I mean, I cannot say that I regret it because look at me now. I'm thriving. But yeah, I wish I was saying this in a different interview, but I wish I had written my thoughts in a diary so I could read them now, but I never did that. And everything is a blur now. Everything is like very, very like faded, like memory. And unfortunately, I cannot give like proper answers, but more or less that was like my mindset back in the moment.
Well, I feel like it's one of those things where like a lot of people are like, oh, I could write a book. And you said that you were like cocky thinking you could do that. But to be able to actually follow through, I think is a lot more rare than people who think they can write a book versus people who actually do. So I commend you for your cockiness because it turns out you were right.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's kind of like that, like inspiration that maybe some inspire, like that's what I'm looking for.
Aspirational.
Mm-hmm. Some people have aspirations to write, but maybe haven't taken the leap to do it yet. So it's maybe the comparison that they need to take that leap. Yeah.
Totally. I always say that. That's why I wrote in my, like in the dedication of the book, I wrote like, never give up. Well, with different words. Now I cannot quote myself. I just panicked. But like, we are not quitters. No, yeah, to those chasing dreams, we are not quitters. Never give up or something like that. I swear I wrote it. I just cannot remember it. But that's the gist of it. Sometimes you just need to take a leap, be a little cocky and think that you can do it in order to do it.
And you mentioned that your full-time job before you became a full-time author was a chemical engineer. And I'm so curious when the reading piece kind of slid in, like, how did you balance those two? Because those are two very different, like reading and writing romance and chemical engineering are two very different sides of the brain.
I mean, I think my mom would be so appalled if I say this, but I don't think I was ever like a particularly good engineer. I think like my brain always, sure, like I had this duality, like I loved maybe both things, and I love the fact that I could do both things, that I would love books and literature, then that I could also work as an engineer or like develop and like have a career in engineering. I love that. But engineering was never really my passion. My passion was books. And I have been an avid reader since I was a kid. I've always read like a lot. And when I discovered the romance genre, it was like a world opening before me. And so every bit of free time I would spend reading romance in any shape or form that I would find. I started with young adult fantasy, like heavy on the romance, right? Then I flipped or I crossed over to like young adult romance. Then I crossed over to like proper contemporary romance, like adult. And from there, it was just like all romance all the time. To the point that I got to like that I had the idea for a book, and then everything else happened.
Was there one specific book that kind of like drew you into that like YA fantasy romance genre to start?
That's a hard question.
Maybe not one specific one, maybe a few at once.
I mean, I think I went, like every reader, I went through phases. Like as much as I was an avid reader, I wasn't reading a lot all the time, at least not until I became a blogger, so to say. So for YA fantasy, I think one of my first obsessions was obviously Cassandra Clare. I mean, technically, well, yeah, it's fantasy. It's also like paranormal, urban. It's like a mix. It's like a good mix. And she has so many amazing series that I devoured. Then also, oh my gosh, what's the name? The Vampire Academy? No, is it Vampire Academy?
Yeah, Vampire Academy, yeah.
Richelle Mead, right? Or Michelle
so.
Reed or Richelle Mead?
I
get
think
them
Richelle Mead,
mixed. Yes, obviously I also devoured that. Then of course I'm forgetting about Twilight. Like how could I not mention Twilight, which was like the face. But yeah, those books, I think they triggered something in me. And then when I got to like the contemporary romance, like adult contemporary romance, there was like something brewing, like the obsession, for love stories. It was already like brewing. So it was very organic and very easy for me to submerge myself in the world.
Is it weird kind of being on the other side of book-related social media now, having been that bookstagrammer that's devouring all these romance books? Is it weird to have people kind of talking about your book?
Some days it's weird, and some other days it feels like breathing. Like it looks like some days I'm shocked how natural it is for me to like talk to my readers about my books and to like see them, read them. And some other days I'm just shocked to realize what I'm like. I have the how did I get here moment, like realization pretty often, like maybe once a month I have it, which is very odd because it's like these, very different, like vastly different feelings, which I guess a lot of people have as well. Like I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I guess I get like a different kind of feel because I was a blogger before. Like I was not just a reader, I was like a blogger, and I would, I was so involved in the world of like new releases, new books. I would keep track of everything. And now like seeing other people do that for me, as natural as it feels because it was something I was doing, it also feels weird. So it's like a mix of very different emotions all the time.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, it really depends on the day. Yeah.
So let's talk about that kind of whirlwind journey that you had. Can you tell us about how you got into the publishing journey and what it was like kind of handing your baby, The Spanish Love Deception, to an editor and a publisher?
So the chuckle, right? So self-publishing, again, I wish I had written like my thoughts and what I was feeling in that moment on a diary, because I think it would be so interesting to see what was going through my mind when I clicked, publish on that KDP site and the book became available for everyone to purchase. I do remember that moment like being very anticlimactic. Like back in the day, I just like clicked and then it was done and nothing had happened. Really, it was like very not anticlimactic. Like I wasn't expecting fireworks or anything, but it was like a strange, like in the movies, just like boom in the background. No. But yeah, it was I just remember the weirdness of it, like thinking, okay, so I feel the same. Like I don't feel anything. But I guess with my journey, everything came like 6 months after the book was released. The book was like live on KDP, and that's when it went viral on TikTok, and that's what flipped everything around. That's what caused the 180 to ensue. So signing the deal with Atria, with Simon & Schuster, and giving them The Spanish Love Deception, and also like the American Roommate Experiment, which was by then was just like a zero draft, as I like to call it. It was just like a very ugly, filthy draft of nonsense. But it was already like a book shaped in my mind. So giving them that was, again, a very strange experience. I was used to like being on my own, doing everything like on my own. And suddenly I had an agent and a publisher and an editor and a team, So it was strange. It was all like a learning curve. And I think the fact that it happened so fast triggered like my imposter syndrome to be twice as what anybody would expect. Like you can feel like you shouldn't be there, or you're not an expert, or you're like a baby author, like in diapers, you don't know what you're doing. But to me, it was like massive imposter syndrome. Like I was thrusted into it, and I was like, I don't even have words to describe how I was feeling. I mean, I think now I've calmed down from it. And now at this point, so after what has happened and the books I've put out and what I've written and what I've learned, now I think I'm finally able to say, I kind of know what I'm doing, maybe, like not always, but some days. So I'm happy about that. I also totally forgot what you were asking. I completely lost my point.
No, you nailed it. We asked about your publishing journey and you walked us right through it. I have a follow-up though. Was there anything about the like editorial or the publishing experience that really surprised you?
I don't think I can answer that because I didn't know anything about it. Like I was not some aspiring writer who had researched on how books are published. I had no idea. The only things I knew about publishing were the things that I learned as a bookstagrammer. Like they would do, marketing campaigns and publicity, and this is what they would do. And, Like they send books to bloggers. That's all I knew. I didn't know how someone would get an agent, for example, because when I self-published, I decided that I wasn't good enough to even think of the possibility of being represented. Like, what for? Like, I'm an engineer. I'm just doing this, for fun and to see if what happens, and no expectations. Like, really, I had no expectations and no goals. I just wanted to publish the book because it was written and someone had encouraged me to publish it because they said it was fun and cute. And I thought, why not? So I couldn't be surprised about anything because everything was new. If anything, the only maybe stereotype that somehow I had learned from, I don't know what, like maybe Twitter or being online, somehow some people believe that editors like forbid you to do stuff, or like they control the book, or they tell you what to do. And the work with an editor is like a collaboration. It's not at all like that. It's more of a suggestion basis kind of work. Is like they're there to support you, to guide you when you're lost, and in my case, to trim my manuscript a lot because I write so long. I ramble as I think you can already like get the rambling vibes from me. But but yeah, but it's a collaboration. So I don't know. Whoever I got that from, who's someone on the internet, rest assured, your editor is going to be there to support you.
And we also really wanted to talk to you about your latest release, which is coming out September 5th, The Long Game. So can you tell our listeners a bit about it? Because this is your first release outside of the Spanish love deception and the American roommate experiment.
I can try to tell you about it. I'm so bad at this question. I always get it like wrong, and I always say, "Oh my god, I'm so bad at it." But I'm gonna try. Okay, so The Long Game. Yeah, The Long Game. I like to call The Long Game my small town baby because it really is, in essence, and a small town rom-com. It also has the soccer sprinkle of fun on top of it. So it does have like a lot of soccer elements. It has a lot of parallels to Ted Lasso. That's why it's like coming up a lot on like comparisons and, reviews. And I'm seeing a lot like the Roy Kent, Ted Lasso vibes, which are correct. They are correct. I mean, there is not a lot, but there is enough soccer in the novel for people who have enjoyed the show. Maybe they would enjoy the novel. But yeah, in essence, it's a small town romance about two very grumpy main characters, two leads who are, grumpy, as I said, and they dislike each other at first sight for different reasons. There's like a meet ugly involved. And at the same time, they are kind of forced to work together. I say kind of because that's a journey. But yeah, they're forced to work together on bringing like a little league soccer team of girls, of 9-year-olds, to new heights in this small town where the book is set. So that's where I'm gonna leave the summary, because otherwise I will just like narrate the first 3 chapters, and I don't wanna.
No, you did a great job summarizing. And I actually wanted to touch on the soccer element. And I'm curious, was Ted Lasso the kind of impetus to be like, ooh, soccer? Or are you a soccer or football fan yourself?
So it's hard not to be into soccer, being raised in Spain. It is hard. Like, I'm not huge on sports, to be honest. Like, I don't do the sports. I lack reflexes, which is an issue for most sports. So I'm like, I've never, I'm more like the book girl, reading the bleachers. I'm not like the sporty girl. But I mean, lately I have been watching and consuming more sports entertainment. Like tennis, Formula One. Is really easy now to like be engaged with a lot of sports because of how media they are. Somehow they seem like more accessible now. for some reason that I haven't like stopped to analyze or or think about. But the reason why I picked soccer from all sports is because it's probably the one that I know the most of and the one that I have like watched the most. As I said, in Europe, soccer, I mean, I'm calling it soccer right now, is like hurting me, if I'm honest. To me, that's football, but well, yeah, so it's a sport that I've that I've watched and consumed the most. So it was the one that I was more comfortable with and more familiar with. And also for some reason, I wanted specifically to write about like a female lead from the States that is not thrusted, but it's like trying to thrive in the world of soccer in the United States, which is so different to the world of soccer in Europe. And I have always found that like so interesting and so, I don't know, like intriguing. So I wanted to explore that with a book. That's also why the male lead is not American, is English Italian, but he comes from Europe and she's like from the US, and they find like all that contrast when they are trying to work together. When they are trying to work together. That's something that I really wanted to write, besides like leaving the sports aspect aside. So those are all the reasons, basically.
No, I love it. And I guess I never really thought about the difference between American soccer culture and European football culture, because they are very different. And
yeah,
my next question in our notes is just 2 words, and it's why goats? Because I loved the inclusion of this little girl who is just obsessed with her farm animals. And I'm just so curious where that idea came from, because I loved them so much.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, actually. I mean, it just came to me. It just, when I was writing the first scene with the girls team, it just like a bunch of stuff like came to me. And one of the things was like this little girl with her goat, and how she would consider the goat like her best friend, like, not not a farm animal, just like a character that would breathe and that would have like a personality and like traits, and that it would be like, a character. So I thought that was so cool, and that I could do so many things with it. That's where Brandy, the goat, came from. And that's also why Brandy is like blind. She suffers from anxiety. If she gets stressed, she starts like pooping all over. I just thought it was so fun, that it would be so fun to read that, like in a romance novel, when like you're not expecting a goat to be a main character. And I thought I want that in my book. So, and then I got to have the goat on the cover, which was also great.
I loved it so much. And this just occurred to me. Was it a lot of fun to write dialogue for 9-year-old girls? Because like adults are always in their own head. They're thinking about things before they say it, but kids are so uninhibited. Was that a challenge, or did you have a lot of fun writing those characters?
It was a mix of both things. So at first, like it was a little hard to pin down like how like the voice of the 9-year-olds, because you have to like, I mean, you cannot make them sound too childish, but also like not too mature. So that was like a bit tricky to get right. And I had help from a few people who would go through the dialogues and be like, no, this sounds like it's too sophisticated for a 9-year-old. I mean, I don't have kids, and I don't have cousins that age either. So I was basing these characters on research from people who had either kids or relatives of that age, or who would work with kids of that age. So at first it was like a little bit tricky, but then it was so much fun. I think like Maria, who is one of the kids in the team, she ended up being one of my favorite characters in the book, because she ended up having like this distinct, sassy voice that I just loved so much, and that I had so much fun writing. And My Better Reader said that, and I took it as a compliment because she has kids, and she said that she was just like awesome. And I was like, okay, you have kids this age, you like this kid, I'm done. Like, my job here is done.
The small town of Green Oak is almost like a character itself as well. How did you kind of develop the town, the characters, and did you draw inspiration from anywhere?
That's a fun question. So I say that because at first, the novel was not set in North Carolina or Green Oak. It was set somewhere else that I will not say where. But like somewhere far, far away. That was very impractical, and it was making my life very, very complicated when I was trying to write. So I decided to like look for a place that would bring me comfort, because that's what I needed when I was in full panic mode, being like, oh, this is not working with the previous setting. So I went for a town like Green Oak and for North Carolina specifically as an homage to one of my favorite shows growing up, which was One Tree Hill. Like, I was that.
We were just talking about One Tree Hill today.
Yeah, so. as we both, like, if you guys could see me and Rachel's faces, because we both love One Tree Hill, but we had a gasp at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw your faces. You were like, oh, I loved it. That's my reaction too. It is my reaction too. And that's the reason why this book is set where it is. I mean, Green Oak is not like Tree Hill. I think it has like a lot of differences. But in part is like drawing inspiration from that show and from all the shows that I love, like Gilmore Girls, like all these small town shows that I've like devoured and that they have made who I am as an adult, I feel like, because all the entertainment that we consume growing up, especially, you know, when we are young adults, I think they kind of shape us in a way. So that's why the book is set in a town like Green Oak, and that's why specifically North Carolina.
Not until you said that did I really realize how many shows that aired in that like late 90s, early aughts are set in small towns. Like, I've never thought about that before.
Yeah, that's
there's so many. There's so many. Yeah.
And I can kind of see the Gilmore Girls relationship in that, like, there's all these fun like festivals and events that they do that are in the book that are kind of definitely Gilmore Girls vibes.
Yeah, all those events, by the way, they are like all the things going on in Green Oak throughout the novel. They are like, I spend hours reading and going through websites of like small towns in North Carolina. Like, you find the most amazing stuff. Like, there's some towns, and they were like tiny, but some of them had like the most amazing brochures of activities ever. Like, not even big cities could offer that variety. I was in shock. So I was like, yeah, I need to have everything here. I need to like pull from everything. And that's why they do so many things. And that's why we have a mayor like Josie, who's like, you know, trying to keep the town moving and to have fun things. And yeah,
I loved it. And Josie kind of gave me like Taylor from Gilmore Girls vibes if Taylor wasn't so grumpy and full of himself. Like, Josie's much more chill.
A little bit, yeah. She's chill, yeah.
And one thing we wanted to talk to you about was Adeline and her journey throughout the book, because I don't know, like, I feel like the need to succeed and prove yourself and not disappoint people is really common, but especially when you're a woman in a male-dominated field like soccer/football. And I was just curious what it was like writing this journey for your character.
So I think all my leads, either female or male, they have little things about me. I mean, it's really hard to write and not drop like these pieces of yourself in your characters. It's super hard. I don't think I will ever be able to do it. So you leave like little things of yourself. And what I happen to be doing, which I just realized like recently, with my female leads, is I kind of pour my struggles and my insecurities on them. Which, I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. But I mean, yeah, when you realize you're doing it, it's not so fun because you're like, uh-oh. But other than that, it's quite therapeutic. When the book is finished, you're like, okay, well, one less to worry about, I guess. So some of Adeline's journey through the novel, I could reflect a little bit on like how I was working in a male dominated world, like I was doing like as an engineer. It's no secret that STEM is kind of hard for women. Like it is not the easiest career path that you can take. And I had my share. Like I was lucky enough that I never got to experience like anything horrific, but I had my share of experience with that kind of issues. So for Adeline, it was like maybe a mix of that, like a woman wanting to prove herself and to like get to the point where she's valued for her work and not for her last name or who's her father or that kind of thing. And then at the same time, Adeline also goes through like an anxiety journey that she doesn't know she's suffering from. Like she's very clueless. She has like a lot of things that she has bottled up growing up, and also like working under her dad, and you know she thinks she has to be a certain way to be successful, and that you know she has to force certain emotions or certain like attitudes or dynamics, and so she's pretty much clueless, and all of that eventually explodes in anxiety that unresolved, if we can call it that way. So that's partly some of what she experiences. It's also partly from what I have experienced in that, I don't know how to call it. Let's just say that this new journey that opened up for me, as happy and as positive and as amazing as it was also like quite stressful, and it was a lot to process. So I ended up finding out things about myself that I didn't know before, that they were either always there or triggered by all these things happening to me. So, dealing with anxiety wasn't especially easy. I still struggle with it. So I thought that it would be a good thing to give Adeline, to give my female lead, like to give a similar journey, even if it's quite different, but to give her like a similar journey and to see her thrive at the end and to find herself in like this new life that she has. So
And like you mentioned, it must have been pretty therapeutic to be able to put that part of yourself on the page and kind of not like relive it, but like get to work through it in a way.
Yeah, it is scary and it's not fun all the time, but I also think that is like, I think it's necessary to write about these things in books, because a lot more, like there's so many people who struggle with so many things, and to see yourself in a character in a book, even if the book is just like a light romance or a rom-com, that it doesn't need to be taken too seriously, but to see these parts of yourself in that book that you're reading, it just sometimes it does make the difference. So especially if you don't know how to talk about that, or if you don't understand it yourself. So I also thought it was important to have it there in one way or other. Like I think that's why all my female characters have certain things that, like for Rosie, for the American Rumor Experiment with Rosie, I just dumped all my insecurities as a writer on her. Which was, again, hard, but fun, I guess.
You also include a lot of Spanish culture in your books. For example, Adeline and her mom and her family. Why is this important to you, being a Spanish author?
So I just think representation is so important. And that's like real life is diverse. So books should be diverse. Like to me, it's just applying logic. Like, why the heck not? Like when I decided to make Catalina, like Lina, the female lead from my debut novel, The Spanish Love Deception, when I decided that she would be a Spanish character from Spain, I did that because I hadn't seen like real representation of my culture in books. I wouldn't even pick books where they would travel to Spain, because I was just like avoiding that, because the few experiences that I've had, like they were full of stereotypes and, things that don't specifically make you super happy to read about, like wrong. So I was like, well, if someone's gonna write her or write something like that, it has to be me. And that's also why they traveled to Spain for the wedding. And that's also why her family has such an importance in the story. And also, I think that a lot of different cultures could relate to mine. So it was like a win-win situation. Like the worst thing that could have happened was me doing them a disservice, like the and the personality or the character that I was trying to write. And luckily, I'm happy with the job that I did. And I love when readers tell me, oh my gosh, I love her family. I could relate so much to her, and my family is the same, and they're not even necessarily Hispanic. They are from everywhere, like anywhere in the world. So that makes me very, very happy. It's like a huge compliment. So the reason why I try to include those kind of things, even if not in a main character, in a secondary character in my books, is because life is that way. Like I think books should represent how life is, and that's diverse. So that's why Adeline is Cuban American, and her mom is, Cuban, like an immigrant, and is still like, dealing with her fair share of experience and stuff. And I think I will never stop like having little wings or having maybe like big parts of my books being about that.
One of my favorite moments in the early parts of the book is when Adeline's on the phone with her mom, and her mom is very upset and is speaking Spanish. And her dad is like, I don't understand you. And as somebody who, unfortunately, only speaks one language, I have been on the other side of that. And I loved how there was no translation, because the English speaking reader is not supposed to understand. You're supposed to feel like the dad who's like, I don't get it. And I loved that. I thought it was both hilarious and relatable, unfortunately.
Oh, thank you. I mean, yeah, I see that happening quite often. Yeah, is sometimes when there's two languages living in your brain, sometimes there's a flip somewhere, and it's usually flipped when you're angry. And words just leave you the way they leave you. So
I loved it. And one thing that Laura and I are both very excited about is yesterday you made an Instagram post that the second book in this series, which is called The Shortlist, is going to be coming out in the fall of 2024. And it's Matthew and Josie's story. Did you always know The Long Game was going to be the beginning of a series, or did you just discover these characters while you were writing and you got excited to tell their story as well?
A mix of both. I think I wanted this to be the beginning of something. I was a little scared to get out of the Spanish Love Deception world or universe. I'm not gonna lie. I was hesitant to even think about like possible second book, like a follow-up to The Long Game, because I didn't know if I was going to be any good at it. Like, what if the setting didn't work? What if the characters sucked? Like, these are the classic questions that you ask yourself when you're writing something new. But the moment that I started writing, and the moment that I introduced Matthew specifically, but then Josie, I was just like, yeah, nope. Like, they're ending together at some point. I'm just gonna make it happen. So yeah, so a mix of both. And then you should have seen. So the only reason why I announced that yesterday before the long game came out was because I wanted to talk about them on tour. And my editor was like, "But this is too early. Like, we don't announce books so early. Like, we don't even have pre-order links or anything. The book is not finished yet." I was like, "I don't care. I want to. I need to, and I'm gonna do it." And they let me. This is actually one thing that I was stubborn about. I was like, "No, we need this out already." But I'm that excited, guys. Like, I think if you could see, like, if everyone listening could see my smile right now, it's like huge.
We can confirm. And since you're so excited and you've been given the okay to kind of talk about it a bit, can you give us a little tease of what we can expect from book 2? A year in advance?
I can. I know I had a lot of screaming in my DMs yesterday, like, "How dare you? This is 2024. Why do you do this to us?" It's like more than 1 year. But I can totally give you like a few things. I don't want to say too much because, again, I'm still working on it. And I tend to shoot myself on the foot when I talk about things that are unfinished. So I'm gonna try to be cautious about it. So the main thing with this book is an engagement of convenience. So our main characters, Josie and Matthew. Matthew, who's Adeline's best friend, and Josie, who's in Green Oak. Let's leave it there. Who's a Green Oak resident and the mayor of town, and that's basically like a lot of stuff around town. They get engaged, or I rather say fake engaged, because, is mutually beneficial for both of them because of a situation that has arisen. And yeah, so there's a lot of forced proximity, obviously, because they're gonna have to spend a lot of time together and they don't really know each other. They only know of each other, and they are pretending to be engaged during a period of time. And it is set in Green Oak again, which I love. This time it will be like a winter book, not like a fall book. We are moving forward. It will have maybe some Christmas elements that I'm very excited to see. It will not be a Christmas book, but a winter book. And we will get to see where Adeline and Cameron are at that point in time. And it is also, it is making me like very excited about writing. And it's not like I wasn't excited when I was writing The Long Game, but it was like a hard book to write because it was the first one that I wrote, like within the traditional publishing world, like the whole process, like from developing the story to like putting the book out, everything like inside this traditional world. So it was hard in a lot of ways. But this one, I'm like having a lot of fun writing it, and I'm having like, it's putting a big smile on my face when I think about it and when I talk about it. And it also has like a lot of 90s and 2000s rom-com vibes, a lot of like winks here and there. So yeah, I'm excited. You should be excited too, guys.
I mean,
we're
excited. I know it's a year away, but I'm ready.
And it must make you feel nice to get those DMs, even though half of them are like jokingly mad at you that the book's so far away. Like they're already excited to see the release. So that must take some pressure off from not knowing if you're going to have the same kind of excitement after the Spanish Love Deception.
You're so right, actually. I think that's going to help a lot. I think the fact that I said, and I knew this, that's why I said it, engagement of convenience, everyone went nuts. Everyone was like, girl, where's my wife? Oh my God. Like everyone went like bananas. And I kind of knew that this kind of trope gets that level of excitement, which is amazing. But now I'm realizing also puts pressure on me, which I'm not super thrilled now. Like, I just realized, like, right now, live on camera. But hey, as I said, I'm cocky. I'm gonna do it anyway.
We have faith that you can pull it off.
Thank you.
So you mentioned your social media a little bit with that announcement yesterday. As a former bookstagrammer, what kind of social media tactics do you bring to your author career now?
No tactics, basically.
But you're using those tropes, so you have some tactics there.
I guess I unconsciously know what might get people excited, I guess. And I'm not new to social media and to engaging with people or readers and specifically. So I guess I do have some sort of like game plan at some level in my head. But at the same time, I swear, like, me on social media is basically blurting out like crap all the time. And that's why I always say to my followers, like, thank you for putting up with me. This has been real. Every time I go up like followers, I'm like, wow, you guys are insane. Like, I don't know what you're doing there, but okay.
It's because you're authentic. So it's fun to follow someone who's authentic and not too planned with everything they're doing. It's a real follow.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I love to use memes. I love to like joke around. I love to record reels with like bad hair, which I should really stop doing. But to this moment, I think my favorite, you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway. My favorite moment on social media ever was when I got a DM. And it was like a user that I had never interacted with me before. Like, I always try to answer to as many people as I can. Like, I go through my DMs, because I love those interactions. I'm not doing this out of like pre-orders or anything. Like, I just love hearing people out. And one time this reader, it was like I had never interacted with that person ever. And it was like a message request, because if you're not following them, like, it doesn't show as a DM, but like as a request. And I go through those too, by the way, which I shouldn't sometimes. I really shouldn't. And she was saying, and it was just like a plain text saying, like a plain message saying, wow, you're my favorite millennial. And I thought, oh my gosh. One, I'm old. And two, wow, I love that. Like, I just thought it was so genuine and so funny. I put it on my bio, and that's what's on my bio. Like, not New York Times bestselling author. No, the first thing I have there is like someone's favorite millennial, because I'm someone's favorite millennial. And I find that so funny and so amazing. And I'm proud that she wrote me that. I was like in tears in that moment. I was like, wow, I've made it.
I saw that on your bio and I was like, I feel like there's something there. But my follow-up is, have you considered making merch? Because I would wear a t-shirt that says someone's favorite millennial on it in a heartbeat.
That's a great idea.
Oh my God, that's a good idea. That's a great idea.
You're welcome.
Smart.
You're welcome. That's free.
Thank you. Let's talk about this.
I want one.
Like even like a sticker or something.
Or both. Why not both?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do the full set, like a tote bag, like everything, the whole thing.
I wear a full matching tracksuit.
A full matching tracksuit.
I'm not kidding.
That's too much.
No such thing.
No such thing. No, but that's fun. Yeah, the merch is definitely like on my to-do list for one day. But that's going on the top. Let me tell you, that's going right on top.
I'll be the first to pre-order, guaranteed.
Love that.
So in your bio, you mentioned that you're a hopeless romantic. Do you have any favorite romance books or movies?
Oh, yes, I do.
Question.
It's a really hard question. I mean, as for movies, I'm gonna say like the classic rom-coms. All of them are my favorite. I'm huge. I've seen them all, like all Julia Roberts movies or Sandra Bullock's movies. Like, I think as a millennial, to go back to that, but someone's favorite, by the way, millennial, it's really hard for me not to like love them. I think there's a generation that kind of grow up with them. So all like I cannot pick one. I'm stressing myself because I want to pick one, but I don't want to. Maybe How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, I think is such like a good
That's
movie.
a very good pick. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a very, very solid movie. And from that decade, there's some movies who seem great, but they haven't aged that well. But this one specifically, it has aged so well, and it's a proof of how good the script is. It's just so cool. And as for books, I don't think I can answer that. It's so hard. What? Why do you do this to me?
How about this? Do you have a favorite trope to read in or to write in?
So to reading, let's focus on reading, because write-in, I think I want to write them all because I love them all, basically. But to read in, I do love like a tortured hero. So, that as a starting point, that's good. It's a specific one, but at the same time, it's not so specific that you can find that like in a lot of books that are maybe not marketed that way. Lately, I have been reading a lot of paranormal romance, and I'm a huge fan of the rejected mate trope, in werewolves, like shapeshifters, like fated mates. So when one of them is rejected, I'm just like eating that, like, I don't know, like popcorn. I think it says something about me that I don't want to get into it right now. But yeah, lately that has been like a big one for me, rejected mates.
I was going to say, you can dig into that when you eventually write your own paranormal romance series.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye out for that coming soon.
You can keep an eye out. I mean, everyone knows it's going to happen at some point. It's just a matter of when. But yes, I'm people know me online for being, one, a millennial, and two, obsessed with like Twilight. So how could I not write paranormal romance? So yeah, it's happening at some point. I mean, for sure. Now I'm picturing my team at age reveal like, what did you say? Whatever.
Well, you have, at least I can speak for myself, like I'm a vampire girly. Yeah. So if there's a vampire romance in your future,
we're going to read it.
Guaranteed 2 readers over here.
Awesome. Then I can come here and we can talk about that. And rejected mates.
I love it.
And just before we let you go, because I know we have taken up a lot of your time this afternoon, do you have anything else that you are working on that you'd like to mention? And where can our listeners find you online?
So for now, I'm just like putting all my focus on obviously the long game, but also the short list. So that's all, I'm focusing on. I have a million ideas for new projects and a lot of things like going on at the same time, but that's where my whole focus is on at the moment. I can't believe I was so good answering that, right? And where can people find me online? Yes. So I am on Twitter. I'm Elena Armas Books. And then on both Instagram, all habits, Die Hard, Instagram and TikTok, I'm the Bibliothèque. So Bibliothèque spelled in French, because when I came up with the handle, I was very fancy. There's no reason. I'm not French. It just sounded cool. And that's all. Then on Facebook, you can also look me up. I have a readers group where you can join, and every once in a while I, leave info there. And I think that's all.
That's perfect. We will include links to all of your socials and your books in our show notes so people will be able to find you. And
awesome.
Just thank you so much for joining us today. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. Really. I just love, I love chatting with you. So I will be back at any other moment that you want me here.
Don't tempt
We
us.
will take
We'll
you
be
up on
bothering
that.
you.
Yeah.
Deal.
Thank you for listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast. If you're interested in picking up Elena's books, we will include links in our show notes. If you're enjoying this podcast, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're looking for more tips on growing your self-publishing business, you can find us at kobowritinglife.com. Be sure to follow us on social media. We are at Kobo Writing Life on Facebook and Twitter, and at kobo.writing.life on Instagram.
This episode was hosted by Laura Granger and Rachel Wharton, with production by Terrence Abrahams. Editing is provided by Kelly Robotham. Our theme music is by Tearjerker, and a huge thanks to Elena for being our guest today. If you're ready to start your publishing journey, sign up today at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing.